Namaste.
Namaste, welcome back to the Sarathi sessions. We are looking at Anvikshiki, which is to do with the critical thinking and logical thinking aspect of leadership. We are drawing ideas from, of course, the Nyaya Darshana, which is also referred to as Tarka Shastra. And we have seen quite a few interesting ideas from Nyaya, including Pramanas, the cause-effect relationships, Vyapti, Anumana. So these were very enriching, conversations. And now I would like to invite Namrata. What are we going to look at now in this particular session, Namrata?
Thanks, Harry. I think, tying it back to the first, session on Anvikshiki itself, Vada, that the three types of Vada that we saw, right? Why do we inquire, or what is the purpose of any inquiry? If you remember, we had said about Vada, Jalpa, and Vitanda. And each form of argument or form of debate having its own inner motivations, and how we also discussed that you know a scientific inquiry into any matter would actually require us to practice more of vada rather than jalpa and vitanda, right?
Yes.
So after having looked at that, and having at some of the other principles on causation and cause effect, and also the pramanas, I think it's only apt to go into an interesting part of how to practice vada itself, right? The Tarka Shastra, or the Nyaya Darshana as we call it, have very beautifully laid down the principles or the steps for us to practice, a logical argument. And it is known as the Panchavayava framework. Pancha meaning five, and Avayava meaning parts. So there are
Mm,
five steps or five paths to
mm,
any logical discourse. So just also want to bring to your attention that when we speak of an argument, we are not just talking about two people arguing for the sake of arguing, or just a debate. These principles can also be equally applicable to help us frame any, say, thought, idea, anything that we would like to express in a scientific way, in a foolproof way. It could be an op-ed, it could be an article, it could be something that we are presenting, like a pitch deck, for example, right? So how do we make all whatever we are creating, whatever we are stating, how can we make it really foolproof? How can we ensure that it has no flaws of conclusions and interpretations that can come in? So Panchavayava helps us to achieve this. Yeah.
wonderful. So this is like a practical, step-by-step process to frame arguments and statements, which is very logical, which is well structured. So it's very interesting to see how Indian wisdom can offer also frameworks for logical thinking and critical thinking. Little did we ever know that there is so much of ideas and thought put into how to be logical, that too in Indic wisdom. Oftentimes we, reject Indic wisdom or scriptures, saying it's superstitious and not logical. But here there is an entire body of study which gives us frameworks, structures, and tools in order to be logical and apply. Very interesting.
Absolutely. And I would say that this is the hallmark of our great civilization itself. To be able to really analyze ideas with a certain rigor, anything and everything is not accepted. And claims are just not made in the air. There's a systematic method of inquiry. And that, I believe, is the hallmark of great scientific civilization itself. The West is often lauded to be the seat of a lot of logical and a lot of reason based rationality and all of that. But once, and I'm sure, as we go into the Panchavayava, one will be able to really appreciate the amount of rigor it takes to even form a certain opinion, and anything cannot just pass off. So on that note, let me go into the Panchavayava framework itself.
Sure.
A favorite example to go into the Panchavayava, it's the most textbook example, right? I believe there were two
Mm-hmm.
friends. We can take it for example, Ram and Sham.
Mm-hmm.
So Ram and Sham are out on the fields. There is an amazing mountain in front of them. So Ram points out to the mountain and states, "Hey Sham, you know what? I think there is fire in the mountain because
Mm-hmm.
there is smoke." So Sham says, "Okay, you see smoke, but how are you concluding that there is fire?" So Ram responds saying, "Wherever there is smoke, there is fire, similar to how it is in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And since the same smoke which is there in the kitchen is also there in front of me here in the case of this very mountain, I am able to infer that there is fire in this mountain." Right?
Mm.
So this is an interesting dialogue that is stated, in some of the text. But what does it bring to you, Hari? What are some things that you are able to
Yeah.
draw from this conversation between the two
Yes.
boys?
I mean, when I first saw this and heard of it, I think it was firstly quite detailed, and the structure of it, like there is a statement, and then why, like because there is smoke, like the cause, and then there is an example, and then there is a reiteration of like the first statement. So some might feel it's repetitive, but I feel it's very very clear. It's clear, it's well structured, it's laid out, and it's so piercing. The idea is very clear and it is established. That's the sense I'm getting when I read this and I also hear it.
Absolutely. And I also want to draw to our viewers' attention that this is an example of the Anumana Pramana in action, right? The
Mm,
Anumana Pramana, just to jog your memories, there is not a direct perception of a certain phenomenon or a certain process. However, there is an inference, which means that there is an indirect perception of something. In this case, um, Ram is able to infer that there is fire, not by his seeing the fire, but he's able to infer that there is fire by seeing smoke. Right? So there's an
mm,
indirect understanding, an indirect perception of something that is not directly visible through the five senses. So this,
right.
in a way, is also the step to make a valid inference, and therefore any scientific thinking, right? Because
Yes.
inference, as we already discussed, is the root of any scientific invention. So Einstein had this apple. From the apple falling, how did he get
Newton.
towards gravity as a principle? Right?
You mean
Apple
Newton,
falling.
right?
Sorry, Newton. I'm so sorry. Newton, right? He saw the apple fall. From the falling of the apple, what was the step by step process for him to infer about gravity? Right? So it's not just important to know that there is gravity or there is a certain phenomenon called gravity, but how does one begin to train the mind to be
In
able to
fact,
become more and
the
more
knowing, in fact, the knowing that there is gravity itself is by inference, without which you don't really know that there is inference in the first place. That
precisely?
is
That is the whole
gravity.
purpose of any science, right? To be able to perceive something beyond what is, obvious or perceivable by the senses, right? So
Yes.
Anumana, this is the five-step process to make an Anumana. So if you really look at it, the first step, he is saying there is fire in the mountain because there is smoke, right? So if you look at it, there are two parts to the statement. The first part is an assertion of a certain fact or of a certain inference that is being made, right?
Mm-hmm.
there is fire in the mountain. The second part of the statement says, because there is smoke, because there is smoke, I see the smoke and therefore I infer that there is fire in the mountain. So the
Mhm.
because, the causation or an indicator of an inference, that which is directly perceivable, giving me the indication of something which is not perceivable, right? That is the second part of this statement, right? So that is also part of the 5-step process. Then, if we look at it, a certain universal relationship has been stated. It's not just generally stated. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Okay, this is a certain phenomenon that is universally applicable, universally observable, universally valid. It's not something that is, selectively applicable or something that changes with time and space, right? This is a certain universal relationship that wherever there is smoke, there has to be fire, right? So, and this universal relationship, as we had discussed earlier, is also referred to as the vyapti. Yeah, we'll come
Yes.
to it in a little bit. And this universal relationship is also linked to a certain example of where it is observed, like a specific case. I see there wherever there is smoke, there is fire. I am seeing it in the kitchen. A certain
Mm.
example is given. And thereafter, this entire principle is extrapolated to a given scenario. This particular mountain, I am able to see the application or the demonstration of a universal principle.
Really.
And
Yeah.
therefore, I know I can infer that this, in something that is invisible to the eye, I am able to infer that that is there here, right? So just to put it, I will give you, maybe the conceptual names, the technical terms for each of these parts.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So the first part, wherever there is, the first part, there is fire in the mountain. That is known as the the first part, the pratignya, the proposition, right? So that is known as what is it that I'm really inferring, the proposition. I'm making a statement. I know that there is fire in the mountain. This is the pratignya, right? Because there is smoke in the mountain. Remember, we spoke about the indicator. How am I able to infer something? I'm able to infer something because there is an indicator of something, right? The hetu, the indicator. Then we go into what is known as the vyapti, the universal relationship between the cause and the inference. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Then we go into the udaharanam. The udaharanam, as we all know, is an example where this vyapti or where this relationship between pratignya and hetu is observed in a specific instance. Like here in the kitchen, Ram had observed this in the kitchen. And therefore, he is able to apply this universal relationship to a specific case. In the case of this particular mountain, the Upanaya, the specific application of a universal principle. And therefore, he is able to come to the conclusion or the nigamanam saying, therefore, there is fire in this mountain. Isn't it lovely
Mm.
now?
Yes. So here are the five parts, right? Five the steps rather to do a very logical, frame a logical statement and also analyze statements logically. Pratignya, hetu, and I think vyapti is part of the hetu. Whenever we indicate, like, quote the indicator, it also needs to be of universal applicability and relevance. And Udaharanam, Upanaya, and Nigamanam. So these are the five steps. And very interesting how you brought it out through the example of fire in the mountain. It was quite simple. But what I would also like to now know is what more? I mean, this fire in the mountain example is one. Could there be a few more examples on how this could be applied and used in real life?
Something very simple, right? Um, let's say you are going to your home and you
Mm-hmm.
see your father's slippers outside the
Mm-hmm.
door.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is it that you will, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
That he's inside the home, like because the footwear is there, I sort of infer that he might be inside the home. Yeah.
Have you seen your father inside?
Not yet.
However, you are able to get the knowledge that he is inside. Yes?
Yes.
So, can I request you to frame your argument with the help of the Panchavayava?
Hmm. Okay. So, Pratignya, my father is inside the house.
Yes,
Hetu, because his footwear because I see his footwear outside the house, right?
absolutely.
I have to establish the Vyapti will be whenever his footwear is outside the house, he is present in the house.
Very nice.
All right. And Udaharanam is my own example. Whenever I'm at home, my footwear is, of course, outside. When I'm not at home, of course, wearing my footwear. Yeah. And Upanaya is here is his footwear outside the home. And so the conclusion is hence he is inside. My father is present inside the home.
Lovely. So, this kind of example, this kind of application is we actually tend to do it all the time. We just
Hmm.
don't realize the processing that goes on in our
Right.
minds.
Hmm.
We do it for a lot
Interesting.
of things. For
Hmm.
example, when the let's say we are cooking food and
Mm-hmm.
the cooker has, the whistle has blown.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe after a couple of whistle sounds, we turn off the gas. Why do you think that's the case?
Because it's I mean, we infer that so many whistles are have blown and so the food has should have been cooked.
Are we able to see the food which has been cooked
No,
or
not
not
really.
cooked?
Not really. Yeah.
However, what is the indicator? The indicator, the hetu in this case, is the whistle that is being, the couple of whistle sounds that we are able to hear or see. Right.
Mm.
So that's again, wherever the whistle blows, the food gets cooked. That's a vyapti, that's a universal relationship. In this
Mm.
specific case, the whistle has blown. Therefore, I know that the food is cooked. It's a very
Right.
simple thing, but it can be applied to anything around us. And in fact, we do it, right? Let's go over
Yes.
some examples,
Sure.
right? We have this first one which says, there were dark clouds. So,
Mm-hmm.
we say that it will definitely rain in Chennai today because there are dark clouds. One is able to perceive the dark clouds. One has not yet
Mm-hmm.
perceived rain as such, but one is able to see that there are dark clouds. And by the presence of the dark clouds, one is able to say, yes, it will rain in Chennai today, right?
Okay.
So, what would be the five parts of this statement? Of course, the pratigna, the proposition, will be that it will rain in Chennai today. Yes, that is what is
Mm-hmm.
my inference. I infer that it will rain in Chennai today. Why?
Mm-hmm.
What is the indicator? Right? What is the hetu behind this? Because there
Yeah.
are dark clouds. Right? What do you think would be the vyapti in this, Hari?
Where, of course, because Vyapti we are trying to establish here is whenever there are dark clouds, there will be rain. Or at least mostly. See, it might not be always true, but it's most probably the case where if there are very dark clouds, then it will most probably rain. We can sort of establish that kind of a relationship.
Yes, exactly. And this vyapti, is there
Mhm.
any udaharanam that is there for such a similar thing that has happened that you have observed in the past?
I mean, yeah. Yes, I have been in Chennai, so I have experienced this very instance where when there was dark clouds, after some time I have experienced rains. And this is also true to
Or we could
other
also
places,
say,
not just.
exactly, we could talk about other places. When there were dark clouds in Bombay, it started raining. In Meghalaya, it started raining when there were dark clouds, right? So, and now, therefore, in this particular case, I'm able to see the dark clouds. Therefore, I know that it will rain in Chennai today because there are dark clouds here, right? So the five parts of this easily establishable, right?
Mhm.
Explainable, pratigna, it is going to rain in Chennai today. Hetu, because there are dark clouds here. Vyapti, wherever there are dark clouds, it rains. Udaharanam, for instance, in Meghalaya or in Chennai or in Bangalore or in Bombay, whatever is the case that you have observed a similar situation, right? The
Mm.
Upanaya. There are dark clouds here now in Chennai. The application,
Mhm.
yeah? And therefore, the final conclusion. Therefore, Chennai will definitely experience rains today.
Rains.
Right?
Wow.
So, this is a step by step process of
Indeed.
making any logical argument, logical statement, conclusion. If you look at it, as we all already discussed, if
Mhm.
we begin to actually summarize or classify a lot of our thinking, a lot of our
Mhm.
ideas, if we start putting it to the test of this very framework, we will know
Mhm.
whether our argument actually has weight or no. A lot of
Good.
ideas actually get thrashed in case it doesn't pass this rigor of this five-step process, right?
Mm.
So I think with that, it's a nice thing that we can begin to apply with our students to develop this scientific temperament. I also want to bring to our attention that in our shastras, in our texts, Indian texts, it was not just matters of the physical world that were used to, that were, proven or debated logically. Of course, matters of the physical world were important, but also matters around, the creation of the universe, the existence of God, all of that. We assume that, this matters of God cannot actually have logic. But you will be
Mm.
very, very interested to know that, one of the finest, I would say scientists of our country, Sri Adi Shankaracharya. It was through logic, sheer logic, he was able to establish the presence of, the highest consciousness, that we refer to as Brahman. So, all of our ideas, it might seem esoteric, but have very sound logical constructs, and it's only our eye, we might have to develop that appreciation or the knowing the technique to sieve through layers of opinion and logic. We might have nicely separate the two and go towards clarity. Yes. So
Fantastic.
anything you would like to add at this stage, Hari, from all of this that we discussed?
Some ideas coming to me about the application of the Panchavayava, very interesting. For instance, we can say the idea that came to me was Hanuman, right? Um, how, so when Hanuman went in search of Sita, Sita was suspicious, not knowing whether at all to believe Hanuman when he says he's a messenger and he's come here on behalf of Sri Rama and all of that, and he's related. So how could she have, deduced who Hanuman was? So what did Hanuman do? Hanuman actually gave Sita his, Sri Rama's jewelry, right? His ring. And that was the indicator for Sita also to know that Hanuman is related to Sri Ram, without which Ram won't give his jewelry to Hanuman, right? So there she draws an inference. if Hanuman has my Sri Ram's jewelry, then he must be related to Sri Ram, because whoever has someone's valuable things is trusted by that person, and so they must be related. So whenever someone has something valuable of another, it means they are related, and that both of them trust each other, right? And here Hanuman seems to have Sri Rama's ring, and so he must be related to Sri Ram.
Wonderful. Lovely argument, lovely framing of the Panchavayava. I'm sure Sita Ma would have definitely gone through this herself.
Yes, yeah, and similarly, how, whenever we inquire about life, a lot of us have questions about life and all of that. So, let's say the statement, John is a mortal. Okay, so I can say John is a mortal because he's a man, as whoever is a man is a mortal. Yeah, because any man, it's universally true that any man or a woman has to die. They are not immortal, they are all mortal, right? For example, the great Napoleon, who was considered immortal because of his invasion and whatever prowess, also died. It was not
Yeah.
that as if he was immortal. So, for instance, Napoleon also was a mortal. So was Socrates. These were all like names of such great personalities, historic personalities. Yet they are mortal, right? So John is a mortal. Again, applying that same argument here, and so John. Uh, yeah, hence John is a mortal. John will have to die. So this kind of a logical let's say analysis and building of arguments will make our own ways of thinking very clear, and also sort of make our arguments foolproof, like you said. So these were some examples that I thought I should share when I thought of it and as I heard it. But finally, I think we should all draw our attention to this fact that, having discussed this, it's very clear now that our system of logic, the Nyaya, the Tarka Shastra, is very, very scientific. Just the sheer amount of structure and rigor with which they have done it. So there is a lot of scientific approach. It is very rigorous and very easily applicable. We just did it. Day-to-day life applicability is there in these frameworks. It's not so esoteric. It is very, very applicable in day-to-day life, and it can enhance one's thinking. And right, and without any doubts and contestation, it is of course logical. So I think it was such an amazing discussion, especially on the Panchavayavas. And this is exactly as you said in the start of the session. How do we approach Vada? It is through Panchavayava. And now that we know how to use the 5 steps, I think we can more often approach Vada, try to pursue Vada, get to the truth of things, the essence of things, and understand it for what it is.
Absolutely, Hari. And it was this rigor, when this kind of rigor is brought through in
Mhm.
one's debates and one's set of arguments and anything
Yes.
that one is thinking deeply about. One is not charged or powered by
Yeah,
emotions
very
as
important.
much, right?
Hmm.
It is not one is not diverting or distorting the argument towards
Yes.
something that is not
Yes.
relevant,
Or
right?
doing
Because
personal attacks and comments. Yeah.
all of those are, because if it doesn't have a direct application, if the nigamanam or if the vyapti, if these two are
Hmm.
not there, clearly you will not be able to go through the 5 steps itself,
Correct.
right? You will have to establish the 5 steps. Only then you are actually making a foolproof case. If you're not able to establish the 5 steps, then it is not even considered to be
Yes.
a valid argument in the first place. So any attempts to distort, to confuse, to bring in irrelevant things, All of those
Yeah.
things clearly can be, removed from the picture.
I wonder if only parliament debates, news debates, presidential debates, various forms of debates in the UN can only approach truth in this manner and not go into, one upmanship and, pursuing victory, so that everybody learns and everybody grows. That sort of a mindset and practice, if only we could have and embody, what better place of a shared world we could create. I just want to leave this session, all our viewers and ourselves, with this thought. If only we can create those spaces and ways of thinking to make it very structured and approaching the truth, the essence of things. I think that would be the need of the hour for the world we are slated to have in the future.
Absolutely. On that note, we will conclude this session. See you soon in the last session of Anvikshiki, which is on definitions. Thank you.
Thank you.